Oops, I did it wrong. So hang on a second. Operator error again. Okay, I got the recorder running. Anyway, good evening, folks. My name is Jim Leggett. I'm the second vice president of Flying Scots Sailing Association. And what we wanted to do tonight is continue to have the discussion about growing our ranks, growing membership, and all that sort of stuff. And what kind of inspired this is, oh, by the way, if you haven't muted yourself, please do so. Otherwise, I'll just go through and do that. What kind of inspired this is, I would say about a month ago, U.S. Sailing sent out an email about their renewed emphasis on one design, or focus on one design. And I had run across Jim Crabtree, who's one of our
village that figured out how to work closely with with Green Bay to make that
somebody
work.
Needs to go mute themselves.
Everybody else was trying to do their own thing. And at the time, I thought, Schwab and I, how come other people couldn't put petty personality and politics aside, and they,
Okay, thank you. Anyway, what I was about to say is, please mute yourself. And what I was about to say is, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody other than our speakers in a second. What I was about to say, what inspired this was there was an email that U.S. Sailing sent out about their one design emphasis. I had run across Jim Crabtree in another capacity, and so he ended up talking with President Bill about what we could do together. And in listening to the discussion, we decided, what would be neat to have Jim speak as well as Tom Hubbell, which I will introduce, to you in a second. Jim's a longtime sailor, so is Tom. I'll give more detailed introductions later. Jim has been a class president and has helped grow our fleet. Tom has been a currently is the class president of the Thistle class. And yes, I realize I'm letting our stepchildren, our rivals in here, but Tom has the same problem. He's also been president of U.S. Sailing, so I thought that would be an interesting perspective, and that's kind of what we're doing here. The other thing I want to, as you listen to the conversation with Ray Merrill and I, one of the neat things about sailing is you get to meet all kinds of interesting people from all kinds of places. Having a discussion with Ray Merrill, I at random sailed with him in North Carolina about 10 years ago. I see Bruce and Jackie from Atlanta. I've known them since like forever. So that's one of the neat things. So what we want to do tonight, and let's just go get to the essence of it, is I've already done the welcome. Then what we're going to do is President Bill Dunham is going to make a few comments. Our First Vice President Nancy Claypool is going to talk about events, and then Jim's going to speak, and then Tom's going to speak. What I'm going to be doing once I get everybody let in, I'm going to be watching the chat box, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So if you have a kind of make this expedient, and if everybody starts unmuting each other, it just becomes chaos on these kind of things. It certainly doesn't work for undergraduates. It can't possibly work for us. So I'll try to address your questions. I have a few things I will come up, and my goal is to have us wrapped up in about an hour. I've got the recorder running. So what we'll do is once Courtney and I get it all worked out, I'll put it up on Facebook on our group, and you guys can share it with whoever you want to. And maybe the way to kind of think about this is, I think certainly U.S. Sailing's goal is, as well as our class and every other class, my favorite kind of sailor is more. And so hopefully, I think what you'll find from me listening to our speakers, we all have a variation of the same problem. We're all trying to do the best we can to work through it. So that being said, I'm going to quit yakking, or otherwise I might break out into a discussion on monetary policy, and then people realize I'm in the wrong place. And that may either bore you to death, or you may find that interesting. So President Bill, this is Bill Dunham. He's our president. So Bill, you want to say a few words from your perspective?
Yes, I'm going to just speak briefly. I want to first thank Jim for organizing this event, and thank Jim Crabtree and Tom Hubbell for joining us this evening. The Flying Scott Executive Board and Board of Governors have been working hard throughout this pandemic to try to find ways to reach our sailors and to streamline and improve many of our systems. One of the neat things we've been doing recently, I just want to bring up, is we've established a cruising committee. And you'll be learning shortly as we finalize details for a few things about a couple opportunities we're going to be offering for groups of people to get together in the fall and September, ideally, providing the vaccinations go as planned. It will be a great time to go see a couple different areas. Right now we're looking at Lake Champlain and an area in Upper Michigan to have people come to. Itineraries are being put together, and we think it's going to be an exciting way to do something other than simply race that the class can sponsor and assist its membership with. And hopefully this will take off and be built upon in different areas of the country. And maybe many of us who do race as well can join in on the cruising adventure, which will include many events at each venue. We are also working to make things easier for potential hosts and host clubs, and people have been working very diligently on that as we move forward. Now, Jim, I think I'll let Nancy speak briefly on national events, and then we'll get to the show.
Get to the meat of the discussion. Okay, Nancy, it's all yours. This is Nancy Claypool. She hails from New Orleans. Bill hails from Pauley, New York, which, if I remember correctly, is north of Westchester County. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, Nancy, it's all yours.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm glad you're on the call. Thank you, Jim, for organizing this. And Jim has asked me just to bring everybody up to date on our national events. And these are racing events. So the Flying Scott class, fortunately, has a number of national racing events. We've had the midwinters for many, many years. Unfortunately, that has been postponed for 2 years. 2020 and 2021, it's now postponed until March of 2022 in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And that's all because of COVID. So we look forward to having a midwinters next year. However, we still have on our schedule, as of right now, we have a Flying Scott North American Women's Championship. And I think we're one of the few classes that has that kind of a championship. That is going to be at Deep Creek Lake in Maryland in June. Our North American Championship, which was postponed from last year at Cedar Point Yacht Club in Connecticut, has been moved forward to this July. We'll see, hopefully, if that can go forward, but that's our signature event for a national championship. And then later in the fall, we have our famous Flying Scott Wife-Husband Championship that'll be at Massapog Yacht Club. So these have all been scheduled. We have been doing a good job of informing our members if as soon as we know whether something has to be postponed because of this COVID. But we're working out in the future. And so in 2022, we're going to have the midwinters in Fort Walton. We are planning to have our North American Championship at North Cape Yacht Club in southeastern Michigan. It's on Lake Erie. The Women's Championship is going to an area of the country that's really starting to pick up with some sailing. We are going to the Grand Maumelle Yacht Club in Arkansas, and Grandma Mel is a member of the GYA. So we're going to have a women's championship there. And then in the fall, we're going to have our wife-husband at Rush Creek Yacht Club in Dallas. And the executive committee has expanded the time period to hold our national championships, primarily so that we can start including some of our southern states in these. So, you know, it's hard to go sail in 105-degree temperatures in Texas in July. So we have, that's been a positive. We have a longer period of time for these regattas, and we are actively looking for venues for 2023. We've had some interest, but if you or your club are interested, please contact me. And as Bill said, we are trying to improve many of our documents so that we have things where the class can be of assistance. And I'm just going to give you one sample. We have prepared a budget template that people can use for our national events, or even if they want to use them for local or regional events. And a lot of times, you know, there's somebody who's great at budgeting or somebody who doesn't understand about budgeting. But one of the first things you have to do when you have a regatta is come up with your budget to see what you're going to do. And whether you have somebody who knows how to do this, this is just a great tool for you to use and tick off the boxes, whether you need any and all of these things, but it really covers a lot of things. And we want to make sure that clubs aren't left, you know, being surprised. We want to make sure that all of our documents and our information gets out to the clubs, because one of my favorite sayings is no surprises. So clubs can know what to expect. We have a harmonious experience between FSSA and local clubs. So that's what's going on. If anybody has any recommendations going out to the future, we'd love to hear from you. That's it for me, Jim.
Thank you. And to kind of build on what Nancy says, you know how these things work. The leaders of an organization are always the last to know what needs to be done. So, and we can only fix the problems that you guys know about. So keep it coming. Okay, I guess we'll get into the our program now with our two speakers, Jim and Tom. I asked these guys who wanted to go first. Jim said he wanted to go first, probably because Tom was otherwise occupied. So there's no particular order other than this, than Jim asked to go first. Anyway, I'd like to introduce to you guys Jim Crabtree. He's a longtime sailor, and maybe that's a common ingredient about all of us. We've probably been sailing all our lives. You know, I tell folks I liked sailing before I liked girls. I'm sure there are some others of you out there in the atmosphere the audience that fit. Jim has been the president of the Megabyte class. He's also been a spark plug for our Fleet of the Year. It's in all places, Jefferson City, Missouri. And if you've ever been, as they say, to Jeff City, turns out I now have a cousin, I guess cousin-in-law would be her correct name is. You wouldn't think you would have sailing in Jeff City, but Jim found a group that wanted to go sailing, and they're making it work. And in addition to his One Design work, Jim also serves on the U.S. Sailing's One Design Council and trying to figure out how the two organizations can support each other. So Jim, why don't you take the lead, and then Tom will back clean up. And if ideas come to folks as we're going through this, please put them in the chat. I will make a note of them, and I will go through it from there. And if you guys bring questions, that's great. That's far better than me making up stuff. So otherwise, like I said, I may lapse into a discussion of monetary theory. Okay, Mr. Crabtree, the show's all yours. Unmute yourself, Jim, please.
Thanks.
We've all done that.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And Tom, the reason I wanted to go first is because I'll be thinking about what I'm going to say if you went first. And I really want to hear what you have to say. You're a person I have great respect for. But like I said, I'd rather be sitting on a dock or sitting in my boat giving this presentation, but I can't. But I do have my Flying Scot shirt on, and I do have my Mad Sail hat on, so you won't get the glare off my forehead. So let's go with.
Anybody recognize these?
All right, let's see.
Yeah, you should have sharing privileges if I did it right.
Okay, up to share. All right, did it happen?
Is it thinking about it?
Well, it's in a security and privacy mode.
So you should be able to share. If not, we'll go to plan B.
Okay, let's see, share screen, desktop. Basic.
And I've been doing this stuff far more than I wish to admit to. One of the things you all has probably recognized, notice how we all talk to ourselves as we do this stuff.
All right, I think we're gonna have to do plan B
Well,
because it's not,
okay.
I can't get through the security.
Okay, I'll give me a moment and I'll take care of it. So if you guys will bear with me, I will share Jim's presentation for you.
Oh, wait, here, maybe I can do it here.
Okay. Did you get it, Jim?
Well, says I need to sign in.
Or do you just want me to do it and you tell me when to change?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, you guys should have a screen that looks like
Okay, they have a
says
little
good evening or something to the effect like that.
Yep, there you go, thanks. Anyways, like I said, I appreciate this opportunity. The concepts that I'm going to share with you, I don't think are unique, but hopefully they'll spark some even better ideas to build the class in the sport of sailing. But these are all concepts and ideas that I have found work, either with our club or with other clubs that I've been associated with. Okay.
I'm going to be Vanna now.
Yeah, so basic, I guess the first thing that we need to think about is marketing. And we know as Flying Scot sailors, we know our audience, we know the strengths of the boat. So we need to focus on the right strategy to get this boat and get people into this boat. So when we're looking at building our fleet or expanding our fleet, let's just ask the question is, what's the profile of our Flying Scot ownership and how do we appeal to that sailor? A story with the Megabyte is when it came out, it was labeled and billed as a gentleman's fin. So the perception came out that everybody felt you needed to be a 220-pound person with strength in order to sail a Megabyte. And in that concept, that image of the boat was something hard to come about. So what it took to get beyond that was a 125-pound lady winning the North Americans twice back to back. Then we broke out of that mold. But again, it was real hard to sell the boat with that profile. Okay, Jim. I think one of the big items in the big picture in every fleet is in order to build a fleet and a class, we need to be real supportive of each other. And what really has worked in classes is mentoring. And that's mentoring those fleets that are struggling, mentoring those fleets that are new, and giving them ideas, giving them leadership, and giving them guidance in terms of what works and how to get out of a rut that they may be in, and even just bringing boats to a regatta that they're hosting just to show that there's commonality and their support within the class for that specific fleet.
I'm assuming the
Jim?
pregnant pause means Vanna, do your thing.
There you go. And then what's really a simple concept, but one that often gets lost, is if we're going to be building a fleet, we need to have boats available. And having used boats at, I say, competitive pricing or at certain price points is real important. And that's what prompted me to buy used Flying Scots, clean them up, update them so that there was always a product available. Our club has 2 club-owned Flying Scots. And we use those boats for sailing lessons during the month of July, where we open up to the public to a Saturday intro to sailings. And then also we have those boats available to members to sail. So a person can join our club without owning a sailboat. And then for a nominal fee, they can use the club boats. And I think that's real important because so many people go through sailing lessons and get all fired up and they want to buy a boat. And we all know the disasters that sometimes happens is they buy the wrong boat. So this way, they don't have to buy a boat and they can sail it for a season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, or whatever, and get introduced into the Flying Scot class. And I think that that's a real good concept to get people into sailing, into the class. And then when they're ready to buy a boat, if we do our job right, it's going to be a Flying Scot because they like the boat and they like the people within the fleet. Sir?
There you go, sir.
Another concept that works, and this comes from more of a personal testimony, but is to identify a talented sailor that's not currently sailing a Flying Scot, get them in a good, well-tuned boat for a regatta or a club race, and get them hooked. And then you introduce them to the fleet, you get them invested in the relationships, and you help them find a used boat. As I said, I benefited from that when I was sailing Lightnings, and I had made it to a district regatta. I took my Woody there, and I was in the bottom half of the fleet, but I was having fun. And a gentleman came up to me after the regatta and said, you know, you have potential, son, and I'm really excited that you're in the Lightning class, and I want to offer you my boat, which was a very competitive fiberglass boat at a tremendously good price. And I've tried to pay that forward. When I get good boats and pass them on to somebody, even if it's at a loss, it gets a good person in a good boat. And I think that is something that we want to do for building a class and building a fleet. Sir?
I was reaching for this and I was almost ready. It wasn't quite fast enough.
And I know I'm speaking to the choir, but you know, leadership is so important. And
hey Jim,
yes.
A friend of mine who's you said talking about preaching to the choir. A friend of mine's a priest, and I said something in fact, why do you always teach people the golden rule? Well, I gotta keep telling it because it still holds. So the choir needs to be preached to as well.
There you go. There you go. But each and every fleet has, you know, a spark plug, and it has that person that everybody goes to get their questions answered, where to go to buy parts, find used boats, and etc. And we really need to encourage, nurture, and maintain those individuals in each and every fleet, because they're the ones that can make the difference, and they're the ones that have the face-to-face relationships with the new sailors. And typically, you know, as I've learned in my professional career, is you have one opportunity to make a good impression, and it needs to be a good one. So
okay, I've been meaning to ask you, Jim, because I've seen a variation of this picture. What's the story behind the case of the Blue Moon there?
Oh, well, in good eyesight. This picture came from our winter awards banquet, and the case of Blue Moon was an award.
I figured there was something good there.
There you go.
Okay, move it forward, right?
Yes, sir. And then encouragement. We all know from our sailing experience that there's been times when we really weren't meeting our own expectations. And having somebody in the fleet that reaches out, that shares their knowledge, that helps you set up the boat, helps you tune the boat, is real important. And that's something we can't lose contact with, especially with the new sailors and those who are in the bottom half of the fleet. One of the things that we do after every Saturday race, and our races are in the morning, so then you usually come in and have beverages and lunch, is we do a post-race debriefing. And that's an excellent tool for people to learn what worked and what didn't, and understand maybe what they did wrong. I mean, winning a sailboat race goes to the person who made the least amount of mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes. But this provides an opportunity for people to talk about it and to move on. We also will talk about protest situations that came up during the race course, so people have a better understanding of the rules. And then one thing that I am seeing more and more of, and with the megabyte class, we did this quite a bit, is that having a clinic or a seminar, either as a standalone event or as a pre-event to a regatta. And we find that really increases the participation. That brings in the people that may not be quite comfortable with doing that regatta, but heck, if they're going to come in and learn something about sailing the boat first, then they'll apply it during the regatta, and it works. And again, if you go back, what we were talking about before, and you have that encouragement, you have that mentorship, this can really be a way to build community in the fleet and in the class.
Yeah, I get it right this time, Jim.
You're doing great.
Hey, I can get rehired.
Yeah, send me your bill. Winning. I mean, we all want to win, and we all know that within a fleet and even in a regatta, that there's various levels of experience in sailing abilities. And if we just concentrate on the top three places, throughout the season, you're really only focusing on 3 sailors out of 5 or 15 or however many you have in your fleet. So one thing that really seems to work well is taking your fleet and having a B fleet. Same start, same finish, but people sign up for the B fleet based on their experience. And they may be at the tail end of the whole fleet, but they may win the B fleet, or they may come second in the B fleet. And I think that's a good way to build people up and allow them the opportunity to be a winner. And then community. Again, building on that platform to widen the recognition in the winner circle is a sportsmanship award, and you may come up with some other types of awards. But one thing that I've noticed in regattas where there's a sportsmanship award is it tends to permeate through the attitude of the other folks that are out there racing, in terms of their attitude towards each other. But more importantly, it broadens the recognition circle, and it rewards a very positive behavior. So this is something that I think, again, builds community and demonstrates an emphasis on the type of behaviors that we want to see out there on the race course.
And Jim, I really wasn't intending to be your foil here, but my question about the blue moon proved your point. Okay.
And then I'm really happy to hear that we're going to have some women's events for the Flying Scot class. This is something, in wearing my hat for U.S. sailing, we're finding is working out real well in other parts of the country. So developing a first sail venue for women provides, a neutral, safe opportunity for women to learn sailing from other women. And that's something that's really working in other parts of the country. So something to definitely consider.
And for those of you who attended the seminar with Nick Hayes, that was one of the trends he stressed, that the new demographic for sailing is women. And as we keep saying, my favorite kind of sailor is more. Okay, Jim, I'm gonna give it back to you.
You're doing good. And then one thing that U.S. Sailing has is the First Sail program. And again, that's something that's working real well in different parts of the country. It's a way to market sailing to the general public, introduces the general public to sailing. It may just be a sailboat ride, but it's their first sail, and you want it to be a positive experience, but it's also a great opportunity to bring people into sailing and bring people into the local fleet. So this is something I really would encourage people to consider doing, is the first sail.
Yeah. And then maybe Tom can talk about that. But at the Jackson Yacht Club, we did it a couple times, and it worked really good. If Eric Bussell was here, he would tell you about how that's just gravy train for them. But Jim raised the point is we want to introduce folks to sailing, and what they usually find is not what they thought it was.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we find that over and over again. And another thing that's real important for us as a class, and I really know that the Flying Scot class is practicing this, is treating your builder as your partner. I really haven't worked with a better builder than I have with Flying Scot Inc. And we're really fortunate in the relationship that we have with our builder, and that's something we don't want to take for granted. I really would like to encourage everybody, and I'm sure you may already be doing this, but when I'm redoing a boat or I'm working on a boat, I go to them for my parts. Maybe I could save a nickel or two somewhere else, but I'm supporting them because I know they're supporting us. And also a shout out to the sail makers, especially Ryan and Stacy at Mad Sails. They've been so supportive for what we're doing out here. And it's not just because they want to sell sails, it's because they really love the boat in the class. And I think that that goes a long way. And then while we're talking about partnerships, I think Tom will get into this, but I've been a member of U.S. Sailing for over 30 years, and there is so much support and so much information out there that we take for granted. And this is our mothership, and we really need to support that. Working on the One Design committee has been rewarding and eye-opening, and there's some great things that are going to be coming out there. If you haven't logged on and looked at One Design Central, I mean, that whole section of the webpage is new, and there's a lot of really good information on there, and it's only going to get better. So that's my sales pitch.
Okay, you want me to close your screen out, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I see we got some interesting questions there, and like I said, I'll be formulating those as we go through. Okay, next I want to introduce our second speaker, Tom Hubbell. He currently serves as the president of the Thistle class, and chatting with him the other day, it looks like he's grappling with the same kind of issues we have about regattas. How do we grow our sport and all that sort of stuff? If I read your bio correctly, not only did you not know how to say no for this year, you sound like you didn't know how to say no a few other times. So that's kind of how these things work. He too has been in sailing all his life. He's been president of U.S. Sailing, so he brings a unique perspective. And I'm going to slightly embarrass him, but I told him I was going to do this. Some of you may have recognized Tom's name because he co-authored a book, or maybe co-authored means he corralled Greg Fisher and wrote that book. I think the title was something like Sailing with Greg Fisher or something like that. And he described the process. They met at a Mexican joint and had tacos and probably some beverage with tequila. And to me, that's one of my favorite books about sailing techniques. My buddy Mike, who sails with me, what we would often do is pick a chapter in the book and figure, let's work on that this regatta. And then there was always be inevitably something that we didn't know what happened is, and we cornered Greg. So what were you trying to say? And Greg was good. He didn't throw Tom under the bus on this one. I don't know. Tom didn't do that right. So Tom, I'm gonna give the virtual podium to you. Hopefully we can share. If not, I got a plan B for you too. So Tom, it's all yours, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks. How's my volume?
Sounds good to me if everybody else is happy. Jim, I'm going to mute you.
Okay. Let's see if we can share that screen.
If not, I got plan B from what we talked about the other night. Yeah, this is not my account, so that may be, yeah, it looks like it's working. So.
Okay, great. So some of this is going to be a little bit familiar. I'm pleasantly surprised at how much Jim's presentation rolls along the same lines. I wish I could tell you that the Thistles figured out how to do this a long time ago and have gotten it right for ages. But really, what's happened is we've tried things and then we've tried other things. And this quote has been credited to Churchill, but then I found out other people claim it too. So who knows? Anyway, it's a good one.
Somebody did. Somebody said it.
Somebody said it. So we did a class survey in 2019 asking questions like, who are we and why are we sailing these boats and where would we like to go as a class? And we collected information along those lines and also some demographics about, who are these people that are Thistle sailors. And with that, we happen to have a strategic planning professional on our executive committee. And so we went to work. And it didn't take long to figure out that we needed to do some serious work on our online and social media presence, that we needed to recommit to sponsoring youth teams at major events. I'll get back to that. We were facing the retirement of our 40-year-long builder, and so we needed to get another one. And we decided that one of our good things was the coaching and learning and sharing that we'd been doing, in particular the last 20 years or so, 25 years. So then we made a commitment. We were going to do a couple of things every year for real. So our number one point was continuous learning. And as Jim said, we believe it keeps interest alive. It's more fun, brings people together. And to my surprise, it really does bridge the gap between the cool kids and the other kids, who tend to feel, the other kids tend to feel left out while the hot guys go off and talk. But having the education component really breaks those cliques and mixes up the crowd. So sharing has become part of our culture. And how does that happen? In the unstructured way, it's the way I'm sure all of you have experienced, just walking around the parking lot and talking about, how'd you do that? And how's your boat rigged? And what was that shift about? And so on. And probably one of the most important things is actually getting in the boat with folks, because you can't find words, at least I haven't been able to find words to describe steering, sail trim, balance. What does it mean to not steer too much? What do you mean while you pull the main in a little bit when you get that puff? Well, okay, we got to demonstrate that. And as mentioned, debriefing after racing, which we've found it works well if it's moderated. People sometimes get a little excited and either wander off track or get into the minutia. Our structured versions are something we call Coach TCA that we've been doing about 24 or 5 years, which is a week-long series of presentations during our midwinter championship. And that's been very popular, and it seems to drive attendance. The fleet version, one fleet called it Crew U, planned fleet discussions, as were mentioned. Obviously, these things are always respectful and really not getting into adjusting the outhaul a quarter inch. Here's a post-race debrief at Nationals. There are 100 people in that crowd behind the camera, and I don't know why they're paying attention to that guy talking, but anyway, they are. Number 2, sailing is social, stupid. And to our surprise, I mean, we all knew we liked to be together, but to our surprise, the survey told us unequivocally that the reason people sail the boat is to be with their friends. And oh, by the way, it's a nice boat. So we just, it would be a big mistake to ignore that factor. Some things to make that go, a buddy system at regattas, actively helping the newer teams get over the setbacks that are sure to happen. And having the chat more focused on the experience rather than the scores. Because I don't know about you, but it's pretty hard to remember who was second 2 years ago at that event. But everybody can remember the fun sailing day. And then some fleets keep themselves alive by having social events actually away from the water, not on a race day. Things that are very interesting to sailors. Number 1, this is part of a U.S. Sailing Focus Group a number of years ago. The number 1 interest of sailors is safety. And if you haven't seen it, I urge you to go to the Gowery, the folks who run the Burgee insurance program that your club and maybe your class have. They have a template on having an emergency plan for a regatta. And, you know, we never like to think of those things, but boy, when stuff goes wrong, you really wish you had a plan. Boat check in and check out. You want to know who's left on the water. It's pretty embarrassing to come in after a storm and not be able to account for 5 boats and have to go looking around the shoreline and in the lake and so on. For the pandemic, we have a policy on masks and social distancing that we've strongly advised fleets and organizers to use. And last, you mentioned leadership before, and I would echo that. Leaders set examples by wearing foul weather jackets and life jackets and taking enough water on hot days, wetsuits on cold days, so on. The number 2 interest of sailors we found was on being green, being environmentally conscious, or however you'd like to say that. We've tried adopting Sailors for the Sea clean regatta guidelines. For instance, one of those is probably the most important one, is that have a rule: there is no tolerance for single-use plastics at the regatta. No throwaway water bottles, but you do have to provide refill stations. And those beer cups that pile up and get lost, and then you issue more, and then they get lost, and you issue more, and then they fill a trash can. Giving away a souvenir cup and refusing to put the beverage in anything but the reusable cup, really, it's amazing how much trash that reduces. And our classes has the opportunity to partner with Sailors for the Sea to create something that'll be coming out this year called the Clean One Design Class program. And I hope you'll take a look at that. Number 5, get rid of all the rules except show up with a legal boat. Kids don't read the rules ahead of time, or at least I didn't when I was a kid, and they don't plan ahead, and they're lucky if they know how they're going to get to the regatta and have enough money to buy the lunch. So we really need to toss the rules. Our class has been doing this incrementally for probably 20 years. And I think we finally got it pared down to the bare bones for kids. Older people, they got more rules. We offer a fee, registration fee reimbursement for skippers under 26, I think it is, which can be quite a bit of money in the major events. And we've also encouraged regatta organizers to reduce the fees for youth skippers. They need help with the usual difficulties that, I don't know, it's never happened to me, but forgotten equipment and rigging oversights. Did anybody bring an extra tiller? So we need to look out for the kids when they show up. Regatta formats, there are a number of things you can do that I'm sure you've tried. One-day events. We're very tuned to camping, and so whenever a regatta site can offer camping, that definitely increases attendance. We always have a social event. We've declared a philosophical moratorium on extremely long races or endless drifters. And I don't want to overemphasize this, but we've really got to be vigilant about alcohol, especially alcohol in youth. Number 7, communication. The bagpipe, I'm sure you've heard of. We now offer online as well as in print. And people want the thing in their hands, so we're continuing to print it, even though that's our largest expense. After our survey data, we went about rebuilding the website. We hired a marketing professional to do that. And as you know, we've all had to move our listservs around. And so we've got that going again. And we've set up a system of regular contributors to our social media campaigns. People we've handpicked and coached and given them an objective of periodic posting. Kind of by accident, but I think we're going to keep doing it. We've started having town hall discussions limited to the 40 and under sailors, attended by 1 or 2 class officers. We kick the old people out of there and try to listen to what the younger ones have to say without their risk of pushback or, without them being worried about offending the old people, myself included. Number 8, funding. We've discovered that the class is serious about wanting to endure and grow. And with the stimulus of a matching gift, we've been able to raise a serious amount of money in the last 3 years, which we've used for these things like the website rebuild and so on. Women in thistles. I'm glad you mentioned women sailors in your presentation, Jim, and we certainly have a similar philosophy. The nature of our boat makes it normal for many teams to have women in the crew because of the ideal crew weight for a team. And we know that when women are essential to an activity, men and boys are more likely to participate. If that's not clear, maybe you missed 8th grade health class and I can explain it to you. And we know that women excel at making the social events better, building community. And the last item is something that we definitely share in common with your class. We hardly ever allow changes. Boat number 1 is still being raced, and we did locate a new builder who I'm thrilled to say is turning out a fine product. We're just delighted. And as you know, that's why we call it One Design. We got a couple of challenges we haven't met yet. And one of them is digging up those old but still usable boats and fixing them and getting them in the right hands of new folks that want to get on board. And the other is the problem of childcare. The younger parents, the young adults, they've got little kids and they've got to have a sitter, and it's difficult for them. We've heard this from our under 40 group loud and clear. And it's not a happy solution when a couple has to decide which one's going to stay ashore and the other one gets to go this time. So if we could solve that, we could grow our sport. So none of this works without the three key players that Malcolm Gladwell identified. The salesmen, the folks that are the best at making that first sale experience a good one. The connectors, the people that make the phone calls and the emails, and they never give up and they keep calling you, and we'd love to see you out, and we're sorry you missed last week, but come on out this week. And then the mavens, the people that lead us to the knowledge and the excellence that we're all searching for. So we need to find those folks and celebrate their work. Here's one of them, Mike Ingham, and it's my two takeaway points. Continuous learning keeps sailors engaged because they gain skills and confidence, and they have more fun, and it brings them together with everybody. And my number 2 point, sailing is social. You gotta keep people together on shore, make the events fun, make them safe, and that's why they come back. So that's that story. Do you want me to carry on with part 2, Jim?
Yeah, why don't you take a few moments to talk about how U.S. sailing, is this the part where you talk about U.S. sailing?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that, because some folks know what U.S. sailing does for them, as others do not. And because we're doing okay on time, and it looks like we'll go a little bit into overtime. And then the way these things work is you won't come up with any questions, and then as soon as we sign off, people have questions. So Tom, why don't you take a few minutes to introduce this to folks?
Sure.
Go sell U.S. sailing this time.
There you go. So can you see that? U.S. sailing, supporting sailors and sailing nationwide. Okay, good. Incidentally, there are boats from 5 different decades in this picture. So the proof of the pudding here is that all the academies use U.S. sailing's teaching methods for on-the-water skills. So much so that we had, that U.S. Sailing had a several $100 million grant to really get into the nitty-gritty about how that works, so that they could build it into other teaching programs and safety programs. So I think we have bragging rights to say U.S. Sailing is the leading source of expertise for clubs and sailing centers to grow sailing and develop sailors. So let me give you some numbers here, and maybe there'll be some surprises, I don't know. We have 14 volunteer board members plus staff. They make the policy, they are responsible. They meet every month, and 3 times a year, typically they get together in one place at their own expense. There's also a foundation board with a similar schedule, and these are all sailors. Some may have retired from sailing, but they've got a sailing history. There are an awful lot of volunteer committee members, 358. They're people like all of us. It takes 54 committees. Plus there's a group that is completely lost in the background. I never heard about it till I was deep in the thicket of U.S. sailing. The national faculty, these are volunteers who come together for a few days and write the publications. They'll write an entire book in 4 days. And then we have full-time and part-time staff. ODP is Olympic Development Program. Siebel Sailors is a grant for a regional coach for sailing centers to improve their game. and provide boats. And USST is the sailing team, the Olympic team. So there are 4 areas U.S. Sailing works on: education, recreation, competition, and Olympics. And you can prowl the website and read more about those things. I'm sure they're not surprising, but you might be surprised to see that recreation is one of the elements. So there are more than 20, I tried to count them up, but I ran out of fingers and toes, so we'll leave it at 20 programs that train and certify instructors. And there are all these categories of courses, and there are multiple levels or stages in each category. So it's really quite a bit of teaching material and testing. So what are the results of all that training? There are currently 5,000 certified instructors trained by U.S. Sailing. That's a lot of sailors teaching. There are 1,500 local sailing organizations using our certified instructors. There are 900 certified race officers, judges, and umpires. So there's a whole lot of people who've gotten their merit badges and are doing the work. I hope you've heard of the STEM program called REACH, and it's a science, technology, engineering, and math program. It's in modules, and it's something that middle school teachers or, well, yeah, middle school teachers, whether or not they're actually connected with a school, use to teach science to kids. And it uses sailing as the environment. And I've listed 5 of the 10 modules that are aimed at the middle school kids. This has proved to be an extremely popular program, and thousands of kids have been exposed to sailing as a result. Jim mentioned the One Design Central project at U.S. Sailing, and if you go there, you'll see that the One Design classes are listed. The Flying Scot class is listed right there in the top row. And if you click on that, you get to learn all about Flying Scots, including this picture, which I stole from the website. And, you know, your mission, my mission, and U.S. Sailing's mission, it's all the same. We want to bring in new sailors. We want to teach them how to sail and do it right. We want to enjoy quality race management. We want support for our class. And we want this to all happen with fair play, sportsmanship, and safety. If we had each person sign up, we'd have a lot bigger base on which to carry off this infrastructure and all these activities. So I hope that you'll encourage your teammates and classmates to sign up. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I'm going to throw one out that Ray asked, and then we can have this question answer session go on as little or as long as folks want. No, I can certainly make up stuff, but you guys have been doing this an hour. But an intriguing question was posed by Ray, and I'll kind of paraphrase it. He's asking the question. It seems like the younger kid group seems to like the sports boats, Vipers, VX, whichever one you want to say. For those of us in the older classes, like Thistles, Flying Scots, how do we work our way through that problem or that challenge? I always like calling them challenges as opposed to problems. What do you guys learned? Or anybody else out there?
Yeah, I guess I would just say this little bit. I don't have a perfect solution, but one observation is that an awful lot of sailors have more than one boat. And, you know, I've got a laser. I bet half the people on this call have got a laser. And so we don't have to be exclusive. We can go sailing lots of different ways. And, you know, I think we should encourage the kids to look at it that way.
Yeah. And Jim, I think the younger sailors are looking for competition. and they're going to go to a fleet that has the competition. And locally, if you have some college sailors that are off to college, when they come back in the summer, grab them and put them in a boat and get them to race with you. It's going to be that experience and that camaraderie. Not everybody, the kids don't have 30 grand to go buy a sport boat, and they may be a crew of one of seven on a sport boat, or they can be the skipper in a one design. The Lightning class has a program where they actually give a promising young sailor a fairly new Lightning to use for a season, and that brings them into the class. And that's something that we might want to look at and see if that's feasible. But the most important thing is build those relationships. If you know of a college sailor that's in your community, invite them to go sailing and put them in a boat. Give them the tiller.
Yeah. In fact, Jim, you triggered an interesting thought here. Is at one level we think the younger generation wants a faster boat, and I agree with that up to a point. But I think what Jim triggered is what they really want is the competition. And I think the real answer, they don't mind whether it's old dudes, young dudes, women or not. They want the competition. And it's one of the key points when we had Nick join us. It's all about mentorship. And I think one of the strengths of the Thistle class, as well as the Flying Scot, is the multi-generational aspect. Because, I'm a second generation. I know Nancy certainly is. I suspect, Tom, you have some guys in your Thistle group that have been sailing with their dads, and now their grandkids are doing it. And maybe what the key there is mentorship. When you're 18, you think you know everything, but you don't even know what the question is yet. And if you can find somebody other than your parents to tell you something, that may be a clue. But anyway, as folks think about this, there's a way to do this. I found the babysitting solution that Tom talked about intriguing. Growth is that Nick also told us it's the single mom who's looking for something to do with her kids other than stare at a screen, other than soccer. So I think to be successful, we got to look beyond what we're comfortable used to.
Jim, we're losing your sound.
Thank you, Nancy.
To think about is we live in a world where we crave relationships and we want to move forward. We're all looking for, if you will, the personal approach. One of the things I think has been really successful in any form of sales is the human contact. I shared with Jim and Tom an old American Airlines commercial where the business was falling apart because they were doing business by fax. Well, nothing has changed in 30 years. And I suspect the way people like Jim have been successful, they pick up a telephone and call them. So Jim, Tom, you want to add anything or just sing the doxology to that? I've lost volume.
I think you said it just right. Calling people up really works.
Yep, face to face.
Did you guys lose me?
We did for a while. Are you there?
Yeah, he's not talking yet.
Okay, I saw my problem. Did you guys hear my sermon?
Yep.
Okay, anyway, Jim and Tom, do you have anything you want to say? And then we'll wrap this up. I think my the juice ran out in this thing.
No, were there any other questions?
No, that kind of cleared it. A couple of chimed in about the A and B fleet, and one person talked about she likes. I think Brian did it at our North Americans at Sandusky. Okay, here's the wind report. Here's what we think is going to happen. And particularly if you're sailing an unfamiliar venue where you don't know the tide or prevailing conditions, that works well. So unless somebody else has anything to say, because I got dinner coming after I resign. I finish this. You guys on the East Coast may have already dined. Those in Central don't know what it or not. So that being said, I certainly want to thank Tom and Jim for their energies and their thoughts. Scott members, I'll put this out on Facebook. Scott members, those of you who paid, we thank you. Those of you who hadn't, we'd like you to. And I like what Tom said about U.S. Sailing. And if you have paid, go find somebody who hadn't. And because like we said, our favorite kind of sailor is more. And my wife used to do fundraising for a university. And they did a survey, kind of what Tom talked about. You know what they found? The number one impediment to fundraising was? Alumni never got asked. So ponder that one for a second. And then there's a related cartoon she had, and there's no, I forget what they call it. We'll call it the giving officer. No one ever died of a heart attack because the giving officer asked for too big a grant. He asked for 1,000, he gets 500. So I guess, as my sales friends would say, go ask for the business or go ask for the members. All right, I'm going to adjourn this. Hope everybody has a good evening. Keep the ideas coming. We all need ideas. What I found interesting about our presenters is we're all kind of circling around the same problem or challenge. We all have different solutions. And the real important thing, say what works for a particular Thistle fleet, say in Columbus, I don't know whether there is one in Columbus, may or may not work on Lake Pontchartrain. But there's a nut to that problem that's similar. So I'm going to sign off.
Hey,
Otherwise,
Jim.
I might start talking about monetary theory, and we'll see everybody in the real world at some point. Good
Jim,
night, gang.
Jim,
Yes.
I just wanted to put in a little plug. Appreciate it, Tom mentioning, or you mentioned in your introduction. Here's his book.
Yeah.
And you'll notice what kind of boat is on the cover there. It's a Flying Scot. The book was written about 20 years ago, Tom. It's just as relevant now as it was back then. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The reason that Greg's sailing, it's Greg Fisher sailing that Flying Scot. And the reason we put that picture on the cover is that Flying Scot Nationals was his first national championship that he won.
Cool.
And I teased with Tom when I plugged the book. He's like, and I took a step further, and I'll get some royalties. Great, I get to buy half a beer. All right, I'm going to sign off. I appreciate the plug. I'm glad you had that handy. And I suspect many folks hear that. And Tom said, as you make it out of print, it's okay with me. All right, good night, gang. And we'll see each other on the water hopefully soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all for being on tonight. We appreciate it.